Hello everyone and welcome to Barca News' second video of the day, where I will be discussing the huge and breaking story that a former police chief has alleged that Real Madrid were involved in the Negreira case back in 2012 and 2014. However, the Spanish government decided to cover it up because of Real Madrid's involvement. We have a lot to discuss, so let's begin. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. My name is Mo, and before we begin with the news, just a quick reminder to make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's completely free, it only takes a second, and in doing this you will be helping this small and humble channel continue to grow. Now I know I always ask you guys to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, but I think today it's important that you do this more than any other day, because the story that I'm about to tell you is something that's existed for many years, but yet the Spanish government and the Spanish media have worked really hard to bury it and cover it up. So it's very important that this video gets to as many ears and eyes as possible, because this is the kind of corruption that exists not only in La Liga but in Spain as well, that everybody should be hearing about. Now, as we've been talking about for several months now, Barcelona are currently under investigation by the prosecutor's office in Spain for hiring the former referee José María Enríquez Negreira as a consultant for the club. Now, this is something very common in the Spanish league, where a lot of La Liga clubs, or probably all of La Liga clubs, hire former referees as consultants, so these consultants can advise the clubs on all the new footballing rules, how these rules are applied, and even how do certain referees rule in certain situations. But what makes this somewhat of a scandal is that when Barcelona were hiring José María Enríquez Negreira, he was also the vice president of the committee of referees. Now, this has caused a huge outrage in the Spanish media, that they are accusing Barcelona that through the hiring of Enríquez Negreira, they were trying to influence the competition and bribe referees. However, there's absolutely no evidence that Barcelona tried to bribe referees or by any kind of influence, and this was confirmed by several sources very close to the investigation of the prosecutor's office, and it was also confirmed by the Spanish Treasury itself. Now, in a shocking twist in this Enríquez Negreira saga that's been dragging on for several months, today the media outlet in Spain, Crónica Libre, dropped a huge bombshell saying that a former police chief in Spain has alleged that Real Madrid were involved in the Enríquez Negreira case back in 2012 and 2014. However, the Spanish government decided to bury it because of Real Madrid's involvement. Now, this former police chief, his name is José Manuel Villarejo, who the media outlet Crónica Libre were able to obtain a copy of his testimony. And during this testimony, José Manuel Villarejo admits to spying on Barcelona and also to discovering the involvement of Real Madrid in the Enríquez Negreira case. Now, you might be wondering, who is this former police chief, José Manuel Villarejo? And in order to tell you who he is, we must dive into Spanish politics so you can get some context and understand exactly what happened. Now, in 2017, the Catalan parliament held an independence referendum where people voted on whether Catalonia should be independent from Spain. And there were a lot of problems with this referendum, ending with the Spanish courts ruling that it was unconstitutional, and where the Spanish police ended up arresting several of the leaders of the Catalan independence movement. And as a result, protests ensued, and there was a lot of civil unrest in Spain. Now, in order to understand exactly what happened with the Enríquez Negreira case, we must rewind a few years back, because of course these referendums don't happen overnight. These referendums start as small movements, and then eventually they gain traction and they grow until they culminate in the actual referendum vote. And that's exactly what happened in Spain, when this referendum or this independence movement was starting to gain traction back in 2012 or 2014. The Spanish government, which was ruled at the time by the right-wing party, Partido Popular, they decided to put a stop to this movement and make sure it doesn't culminate in the referendum vote. So what they did was hire police officers or undercover investigators in order to infiltrate these independence movement organizations, to spy on them, and also to create false evidence as a part of a smear campaign in order to undermine this whole independence movement. Now, Jose Manuel Villarejo was a former police officer who was hired to spy on several of these organizations tied to the independence movement in Catalonia. And part of these people or organization that Jose Manuel Villarejo was supposed to spy on was the former Barcelona president, Sandro Rosell, and of course, Football Club Barcelona. So just to confirm, the Spanish government hired Jose Manuel Villarejo in order to spy on Barcelona and in order to spy on the former Barcelona president, Sandro Rosell, as part of this whole campaign to falsify evidence and try to smear the entire Catalan independence movement in order to undermine it and make sure it doesn't reach that referendum vote on independence, which of course they failed to do this because the referendum vote ended up taking place in 2017, but nonetheless, it didn't go anywhere because, as I said, the Spanish courts ruled that it was unconstitutional, and the Spanish police ended up arresting several of the leaders of the Catalan independence movement. Now, while Jose Manuel Villarejo was spying on Barcelona and was spying on Sandro Rosell, he came across the whole Enriquez Negreira files and case, and it seems that he reported it to the Spanish government and to several other entities, but it seems that Real Madrid was also involved in the Enriquez Negreira case, so the Spanish government decided not to act on it, and they ended up burying the entire report because, again, they didn't want to investigate it because Real Madrid was involved in the whole case. Now, we don't know exactly what Real Madrid's involvement is with the Enriquez Negreira case, but what we do know, this is yet another example out of the thousands of examples of the corruption, the rampant corruption that goes on not only in La Liga, but the entire Spanish country. Because when it comes to Real Madrid, when they do something wrong, that story gets buried and not investigated. But as soon as Barcelona's there's even a whiff of something going wrong, all of a sudden, all the investigative agencies and all of the media outlet jump on it in order to try to undermine the club. Now, whether the testimony of Jose Manuel Villarejo is true or not is something that still needs to be proven. But of course, the big question is whether anybody is gonna investigate these statements or whether they're gonna try to bury it as well. Because again, when it comes to Real Madrid, no wrong can be done, and the Spanish government and La Liga will go as far as they need to in order to bury any kind of stories or any kind of evidence. Now, by no coincidence, Real Madrid's president Florentino Perez has deep ties to this political party that was in rule with Spain at the time, which is called Partido Popular. And of course, La Liga's president Javier Tebas also has very deep ties with Partido Popular. And again, this is not a coincidence. And it's just many of the examples of the corruption that goes on in Spain and how there's a completely double standard when it comes to Real Madrid and the remainder club of the Spanish country. Now, what I'm curious about is what all these Madrid-based media outlets are going to do, because when the Enriquez Negreira case broke onto the scene, every media outlet was quick to jump and talk about how Barcelona need to be sanctioned, that Barcelona need to be investigated, that Barcelona need to be made an example because corruption should not be allowed in La Liga, and this was a stain on the Spanish league. So we're gonna have to see what these media outlets will say about Real Madrid's involvement now, whether they're also gonna want their own club investigated and punished, or whether they're gonna look the other way like they have always done. Now, another thing that I wanted to add is that I mentioned in a previous video that when these media outlets began to leak the Enriquez Negreira case, they didn't quite understand what they were doing and that they had opened a Pandora's box. And I'm glad that this Pandora's box has been opened, because ever since, a lot of stories has been coming to the surface, like the story that Javier Tebas, while he was a vice president of the Spanish league, was doing exactly what Enriquez Negreira was doing, where he was accepting money for clubs in exchange for informational reports. And now we found out that Real Madrid was also involved in the Enriquez Negreira case and that the government buried that entire story. Now, I'm not here to try to justify any kind of corruption or any kind of illegal wrongdoing by Barcelona. If Barcelona really did commit something wrong in the Enriquez Negreira case, then they need to be investigated all the way through and they need to be punished. But the important thing is that we applied the same standard to all the clubs in La Liga. So if Real Madrid were also involved, they also need to be investigated. And if they are found guilty, they need to be punished, because we can't have a double standard for certain clubs where if one club does something wrong, they get punished, and where the other one does it, we look the other way. You either punish all of the clubs that do wrong or you don't punish any of them. You can't be going on with this double standard. This is simply not right. It's completely wrong, and this needs to be fixed ASAP. Now, sadly, I am not surprised at all by this story because we've all known as Barcelona fans that Barcelona has been the victims of the Spanish government, the Spanish League, the Spanish Football Federation for many decades, and you can even argue since Barcelona's inception back in 1899. But of course, Real Madrid don't only control the Spanish government and La Liga, they also control the media outlets in Spain. So they have been able to convince many people that not only are they a club that does no wrong, but that in fact, they are the victims and not Barcelona. But of course, I always love to hear from you, so drop a comment down below letting me know your thoughts and opinions about this story involving Real Madrid with the Enrique Negreira case and the Spanish government's efforts in order to bury that entire investigation. So that is it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give me a like. And finally, please subscribe to the channel so you can stay current on all the latest news in regards to our beloved club, FC Barcelona. Thank you for watching. I will see you in the next video. And as always, Visca Barça and Visca Catalunya.